Here is the recap of the first and second season of Reacher series. Jack Reacher arrives in a small town called Margrave and walks into the nearest diner. Suddenly, the police burst in and arrest him, accusing him of committing a murder. At the police station, he is processed by Officer Roscoe, who immediately guesses his innocence. Detective Finley tells the protagonist that in the cornfield at night, someone killed a man with a silenced gun and then mutilated the corpse beyond recognition. Reacher says he didn't arrive here until this morning and couldn't have been at the crime scene. He came to the city because this place was recommended by his older brother, whom he had not seen for a long time. It turns out Reacher was a former military man who headed a special unit that investigated various crimes in the army. He was damn good, but recently retired. Now the protagonist is traveling for his own pleasure. Detective Finley needs to check this information, and Reacher is left in the police station for a while. There was a note in the dead man's shoe with the phone number of financier Hubble. Finley and Roscoe go to see him. The man is visibly worried, and when he notices a black car standing nearby, he confesses to the murder. Detective immediately guesses that Hubble is lying. However, he has to be arrested and sent to jail. Finley realizes that something is not clean here. He asks Reacher to talk to the financier while they are sent to the detention center for the night. However, it turns out that a dirty guard sent them to the block where dangerous criminals are serving their sentences. Reacher realizes that there is a reward for Hubble's head, and he easily kills a crowd of prisoners who attacked them. The financier tells the protagonist that he works for a certain criminal organization. Apparently, they suspected that he blabbed and now want to get rid of him. The next day, the men are released from prison, and for lack of evidence against them, released. Later, Reacher learns that the police found a second body in the same field where the first body. The detective asks the protagonist for help and leads him to the morgue. There, Reacher learns that the first deceased was his brother Joe. Now, this case for the protagonist became personal, and he decided to find out the truth by all means. The next day, the cops discover that someone has killed the chief of police, and in a very brutal way. They nailed him to the wall, cut off his genitals, and shoved them down his throat. Reacher realizes that it is the same crime syndicate with which Hubble was connected, as he told something similar. He and Roscoe go to see the financier, but his wife Charlie reports that he has disappeared somewhere. The protagonists realize that he is most likely dead, and since his family is now in danger, they decide to hide them. Finley contacts his friend Picard, an FBI agent. He hides Hubble's wife and children in a cabin somewhere in the middle of nowhere. Meanwhile, the mayor of the town makes himself chief of police and orders all employees to search for the killer. Finley and Roscoe suspect that the mayor may not be clean, as he is clearly leading them down the wrong path. We also get to know the businessman Kleiner. A few years ago, his family came to this godforsaken town and invested a lot of money here. After that, Margrave began to prosper. Kleiner Sr. has two nephews, Kleiner Jr. and Dawson, who are clearly a bit of a jackass. Reacher decides to interrogate the same guard who sent them to the common block in the prison. When he arrives, he falls into a trap where two South American mercenaries are waiting for him. Reacher manages to escape and returns to the police station where he shares his guesses with Finley and Roscoe. It turns out that his dead brother Joe worked in the Secret Service and investigated financial crimes. Most likely he found in Margrave criminal organization, and apparently they have something to do with South America. At night, Roscoe and Reacher go to a bar, where they have a good time and even begin to feel sympathy for each other. In the morning, they drive up to Roscoe's house and realize that someone broke in, apparently trying to kill the woman. Meanwhile, the main characters get in touch with a colleague of Reacher's dead brother. From her, they learn that Joe came on the trail of the largest crime syndicate engaged in the creation of fake banknotes. Reacher wants to get the documents on which his brother worked and agrees with the woman to meet in person in a couple of days. That night, Reacher again goes in search of the guard from the prison, but he is followed by hired assassins. Eventually, the protagonist kills them and finds the body of the guard in their trunk. Finley helps to get rid of the bodies, and Roscoe takes an interest in Reacher's past. It turns out he has a note in his file that he killed civilians, but in fact the man then executed rapists. After everything happens, Roscoe and Reacher spend the night in a hotel and sleep with each other, By this time, the police learn the name of the second man killed in the field. It turns out to be some truck driver. The protagonists go to his house and learn from his wife that he often brought some boxes of air conditioners to the garage, but they turned out to be empty. The puzzle begins to take shape. Reacher assumes that the counterfeit money was brought from South America to Margrave, where there was a distribution center. The Kleiner family seemed too suspicious to Reacher, and apparently they are in charge of storing and sending the money to buyers. FBI agent Picard gets information about a burned-out car in a cornfield, and Reacher guesses that it was his brother's vehicle. This car was spotted outside the hotel, which means there may be evidence against the crime syndicate left behind by Joe. Reacher and Roscoe head there, but they are overtaken by bandits. They steal all the documents, but throw away the briefcase. Reacher knows his brother well, so he finds a secret compartment in it and a note with information that is still unclear. At this moment, they are attacked by thugs, but the protagonists manage to kill them. Soon, Finley, Reacher, and Roscoe meet and try to figure out what names and phone numbers are in Joe's note. They get through to them and realize that they are professors in a very narrow field related to finance. However, they are all at a conference in another country and will be unavailable for several days. Reacher calls Neagley his old co-worker who is now working as a private investigator. He asks for her help, and she starts digging. The main characters go to meet a colleague, Joe, with whom they agreed to meet in person. However, she does not go up the escalator, and Reacher realizes that something is wrong. He finds her corpse in the subway tunnel, and all the documents are once again taken by someone. Back in Margrave, Reacher sees Roscoe's car scribbled with insults, and realizes that the junior Kleiners did it. He finds them and beats them up, but they don't press charges, as they have their own snouts in the fire. However, the mayor of the city, who now runs the police, fires Roscoe. Soon, the woman begins to suspect that the suicide of her mentor several years ago was probably staged. Together with Reacher, they search his leftover stuff and find a key. It leads to old records that again indicate that Margrave is a distribution center for counterfeit money, but there is no concrete evidence. Roscoe also learns that it was the town's mayor who murdered her mentor and faked her suicide. Realizing that Roscoe is now in danger, she is sent to guard Hubbell's family in the woods, replacing Agent Picard. Reacher meets with his former co-worker, Neagley, and together they learn the following information. It turns out the Kleiner family built a chemical plant in Memphis a few years ago that polluted a local river. When some FBI agents started checking it out, he was killed and the investigation stalled. At this time in Margrave, Finley decides to get evidence against the Kleiners and sneaks into their office, but finds the corpse of Kleiner Sr. there. The protagonists assume that the South American cartel begins to panic and kills everyone who interferes with business. Finley and Reacher decide to follow the Kleiners' trucks. However, they discover that an empty truck has departed from their warehouse, which is very strange. Reacher soon learns that one of the professors communicating with his brother has been killed, and he urgently meets with the second one. He saves her from the assassin, and she tells the man that it is incredibly difficult to counterfeit money nowadays. It turns out that everything can be forged except the paper itself, which means that the villains need somewhere to take it. Meanwhile, Roscoe is guarding the Hubbell family and notices movement in the woods. They escape from the assassins and don't realize how they were able to find them. Soon, the woman reveals that she always knew where her husband worked. It turns out a few years ago, Kleiner came to him and offered him a high-paying job. However, it was a setup, and Kleiner made sure Hubbell couldn't refuse, and if he went to the police, he would be executed in the most brutal way possible. Meanwhile, back in Margrave, Reacher decides to lure the mercenaries out and ambushes them, killing Dawson, the nephew of Kleiner Sr. After this, the protagonist finally gets a clue. He figures out where the villains get the paper for the money. It turns out they take old small-denomination banknotes and use chemicals to erase the ink from them. These are the chemicals that the Kleiner family used to make in Memphis. So Margrave's not a distribution center. It's where they make these counterfeit banknotes. The only thing left to do is get the evidence, which is the money itself. Reacher remembers the truck driver who had empty boxes of money in his garage. Eventually, the protagonist guesses that the man took the money not to his home, but to his parents. Together with Finley, they find the fake bills, but then they are caught by surprise by the bad guys. It turns out that Agent Picard works for them, and it is thanks to him that the bandits have always been one step ahead. We learn that Kleiner Jr. killed his father because he was preventing his nephew from expanding. The man reveals that he captured Roscoe with Hubble's family, but promises to spare the children if Reacher is brought to him by Hubble himself, who turns out to have escaped somewhere. The protagonist eventually finds him, frees Finley, and together with Neagley, they decide to kill all the villains personally. After a short battle, the entire criminal gang is killed, and the production burns down. Soon things finally settle down in the city. Reacher says goodbye to his new friends, and goes wherever he wants to go. This is the end of the first season. Reacher continues his usual lifestyle, traveling the country. One day his co-worker, Neagley, contacts him and informs him that a member of Reacher's hand-picked Special Investigations Unit has recently been murdered. He was thrown out of a helicopter and brutally tortured before that. We are shown the past. Back when Reacher was still in the military, he was tasked with creating a team to investigate complex crimes in the Army. He finds 8 capable people and together with them, forms 110 Special Investigation Squad. In the future, I will call it SIU. For several years, they perfectly coped with any assigned tasks and identified criminals at all levels of the military structure. One day, they noticed oddities in the pilot's reports and started digging deeper. The team discovered a multi-million-dollar scheme to sell illegal substances through the supply of Army equipment. The team was ready to prosecute the top conspirators. However, the superiors from above ordered to put everything on the brakes because they were afraid that all responsibility for such a large-scale scheme would fall on them. Only Reacher decides not to listen to his superiors, so he arrests all the criminals. As a result, 110 Special Investigative Unit is disbanded for disobedience. In the present, Reacher and Neagley want to figure out who killed their friend and try to connect with the rest of the squad. It turns out that one of them died in a car accident a year ago. They manage to contact only David, and the others for some reason do not answer. The 3 of them find the office of a friend thrown out of a helicopter where someone has already dug before them. Eventually, they manage to find a hidden flash drive with data. There are 2 documents on it. One has a strange set of numbers on it that they can't decipher, and on the other is a list of aliases of a man with the initials AM. Another member of the SIU named Tony lives nearby, and the trio goes to him. However, he obviously hasn't been home for a long time, and it looks suspicious, as he couldn't just leave his favorite dog, which died of dehydration. The main characters realize that perhaps someone is hunting for them, so they continue to dig further. Reacher notices a vehicle following them. The man pulls out the driver and beats him. However, it turns out that it is a policeman. So the main characters immediately go into hiding. Soon they meet another member of the SIU named Carla, who specializes in financial fraud. She could not answer before, as she was out of town. Together they decide to find 2 more of their co-workers, Sanchez and Orozco, who haven't been in touch in a while. They find their office, and it turns out that someone has already been there. Talking to their acquaintance, the main characters learn that the couple after the Army got a job in the security service of a large casino, and on the eve of their disappearance they called some numbers on the phone, namely 650 for 100,000 each. Reacher thinks that these numbers mean the amount stolen from the casino, that is $65 million. Perhaps Sanchez and Orozco found out about this robbery and contacted their other SIU co-workers to help them, but the villains found them first. The main characters go to the casino where the couple worked, but an inspection reveals no problems. In addition, they learn that the bodies of Sanchez and Orozco were also found in the woods dropped from a helicopter. Reacher is found and arrested by the same policeman who followed him earlier, and David goes with them to the station. At first, the main characters think that Russo is a corrupt cop, but it turns out that he is engaged in the case of people thrown out of the helicopter. He immediately realizes that it has something to do with Reacher's squad, so he starts to follow him. Russo wants to help the main characters, so he shares with them the information that the murders are somehow connected with a famous arms broker, supplying weapons to various terrorist organizations. His initials match the list of names that was on the flash drive, and the main characters share this information with Russo. After that, they leave the police station. Meanwhile, we are shown this broker who has come to the United States to make some kind of deal. He buys a fake ID for one of his aliases. Then he kills all the witnesses. When he gets to the airport, he notices undercover cops, so he leaves the building and goes to the designated place by car. Reacher and Carla have long felt sympathy for each other, but the man did not want to spoil the working relationship. Now nothing holds them back, so the couple sleeps together. In the evening, Reacher and Carla are attacked by mercenaries. However, the main characters manage to kill them. At one of them, they find a temporary pass to the company New Age Technologies, engaged in the production of equipment for the U.S. Army. The women go there to find out how the mercenary is connected to them. Marlowe, the director of operations, informs them that it is simply a contractor for the cleaning company. The four main characters go to his address. There, an ambush is already waiting for them. However, they manage to kill all the mercenaries without problems. Having combined all the facts, they guess that the New Age is somehow connected with the murders. And the list of numbers on the flash drive means shipped components. Now everything comes together. Their former co-workers wanted to uncover the plot, but paid with their lives. At night, the main characters break into a company office and steal a bunch of documents from there. They try to figure out who is behind it, and soon learn that one of the security officers is a co-worker from the SIU named Tony, who disappeared leaving his dog to die. His body has never been found, so Carla, Neagley, and David suspect that he may be the one who planned the crime. It turns out that a few years ago, when the SIU was investigating a case involving the sale of illegal substances, the squad was missing one pack of seized powder. Tony eventually found it in a squad car, but after that, the team began to suspect him of being dirty. In the present, Reacher disagrees with his friends and believes that Tony would never engage in criminal activity. The main characters find out that New Age is somehow connected with Senator Lavoie, who agreed the documents for the production of the latest missiles called Little Wing. It turns out that this technology can easily bypass any defenses and shoot down absolutely all aircraft without exception. Reacher realizes that someone from the New Age wants to sell 650 missiles for $100,000 each to terrorists. Reacher subsequently meets with Senator Lavoie, but he assures that although he took a bribe to authorize the company to produce the missiles, he was unaware of the intention to put them in the hands of terrorists. Lavoie offers to help the main characters stop the villains. Neagley and Carla go to the New Age warehouse posing as an inspection, but learn that the missiles have already been shipped. They rush after the truck hoping to catch up with it, but the villains intercept it and steal the contents, and the women learn that the documents on the shipment were signed by Tony, their missing co-worker. But only to give the missiles to the terrorists is not enough. You still need special chips and a specialist who will tell how to activate them, so the main characters still have a chance to stop the villains. Soon the team learns that the one who is behind everything is Langston, the head of New Age Security Service, and all his subordinates are former corrupt cops. Another involved employee is Marlowe, the director of operations, but she's gone missing. Together with Russo, they find her, but it turns out that she has nothing to do with it, and she was simply ordered to lead the main characters into a trap. Now she and her daughter are in danger, so Russo tries to take them to a safe place, but his boss is also a corrupt cop and gives New Age their location. Russo sacrifices himself to save the woman and child. However, Reacher visits Russo's corrupt supervisor and kills him. Meanwhile, the team manages to lure Langston and his bodyguards into a trap, and they kill everyone except the boss, who is evacuated by helicopter. After a while, Langston manages to capture Carla and David. He demands that Reacher come to him, and then he will spare everyone. Of course, this is not true, so the man enlists the support of Senator Lavoie, who gives him some of his men, former Marines. Reacher pretends to surrender and learns that their missing co-worker Tony has actually been dead all along, and Langston has been using his eye and fingerprints to sign electronic documents. A battle ensues, and the villains lose. Langston loads Carla and David onto a helicopter and heads to the designated location to finalize the deal with the terrorists, handing over the chips and the specialist. Reacher manages to jump into the helicopter at the last minute. He kills Langston's last bodyguard and drops the boss from a great height. Soon the broker arrives at the site of the deal, but the main characters are already waiting for him. They kill him, after which they release the helicopter pilot and the specialist who was supposed to activate the chips. However, they don't manage to fly far away, as Neagley blows them up with the help of those super missiles. Suddenly, the Senator's Marines point guns at the main characters. It turns out that in order not to let anyone know that he was somehow involved, Lavoie ordered his men to get rid of the witnesses. Except Reacher saw it coming. He contacted his friends at Homeland Security, and they arrested both the Marines and the corrupt senator. The team takes $65 million with them and distributes it to all the affected people. Reacher also gives some of the money to his friends, but he only buys himself a bus pass and continues his journey across the country. This is the end of the second season. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click the like button. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.